Our next knowledge insight for today is titled as Role of Global Capability Centers, that is GCC, in Accelerating Industry 4.0 and Smart Factory Agenda. And to present this, we have with us Mr. Jaikumar Subramanian, Partner and Executive Director, IBM Consulting, India, South Asia. Mr. Jaikumar Subramanian has 20 plus years of wide spectrum of experience in technology, enablement to manufacturing organizations, enable and support clients in setting up and expanding global capabilities covering product development, innovation, transformation, programs, global delivery initiatives, COE domain experience in manufacturing, industrial engineering, plant operations, quality management, Six Sigma, lean management, quality management systems, and a lot more. Without any further ado, I would request Mr. Jaikumar Subramanian to, okay, you have your video on. If you would want to check your microphone, we can definitely do that. A warm welcome and good morning to you. Mr. Jaikumar, we are unable to hear you. Are you on mute? You're not audible.
Now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, why not? Do you want to share the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that.
I'll stay with you online and I'll let you know if we can see it. Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
All the best to you. You can take the session forward.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It is really great pleasure to be part of this meeting and pleasure to connect with all of you. As part of this keynote address, the topic which I've chosen is that what is the role of global capability centers in accelerating and driving the Industry 4.0 and smart factory programs for the enterprise. So I just want to lay out three important dimensions of how do we do this acceleration of this Industry 4.0. The first dimension is all about understanding what clarity around the enterprise, Industry 4.0 and smart factory. There are a lot of different terms and terminology that has come in because these are all new technologies and the emerging capabilities. So it is very important within the factory network, how the information technology team, how the factory team or the manufacturing excellence teams, we all come and speak through the common terminology. That is first part. The second dimension which I would like to articulate is that having set forward to this drive of accelerating the Industry 4.0 agenda, how do we organize ourselves within the global capability centers, right? In terms of the teams, in terms of the capabilities, the domain expertise is a second important dimension where we should be putting a lot of focus. And the third important dimension and aspect which is important for this acceleration is about delivering the value and the outcome, whatever we have decided. And unless we show the business benefits and the value what the whole program is delivering on a large scale, it is be really very difficult to sustain the program. So it is very important periodically we deliver and demonstrate and communicate the business value through this program, how it is being addressed. So coming to the first important dimension about understanding what is Industry 4.0 quickly, right? I would like to call out that Industry 4.0 is all about bringing three important capabilities of Internet of Things, Internet of Services, and the human-machine collaboration, right? So whenever we talk about Industry 4.0, the key aspect dimension is that how do we establish the cyber-physical systems by bringing the IoT, iOS, and the human-machine collaboration, right? So whenever we go to a factory network, we used to see different disparate systems of different make and model, right? And fundamentally, we need to build a layer of unified manufacturing performance management by instrumenting these different machines. Second is building an interconnected systems so that there is a seamless flow of information that happens from each of these machines of different make and model. And finally, whatever the information or the data that comes in flow, each one of it and the patterns and is giving some insights to take the next best actions in terms of whether productivity improvement or quality improvement or rework, elimination, in the factories, right? So instrumenting, interconnecting, and driving that intelligence to the data flow makes an important component of the building that cyber physical system. Second important point is that all these systems are on remote in the field, whether it is cars or trucks or machines or the factories or the distribution centers. Each of these physical assets are remotely on different locations on a remote field. Constantly, the capabilities around how do we take this data and build a services model or the new revenue generation model as a new competitive advantage for the equipment manufacturers is also a constant focus over there. So Industry 4.0 is also about delivering the new services using the APIs, application program interfaces, to by connecting directly to the data from the remote sensors to a cloud platform and then driving those services model to earn more revenue. So this is the second important aspect. And the third important aspect is all about the knowledge, experience, and domain knowledge is all with the experience set up with the team, right? And the machines can actually try to learn more and more of this expertise with them. Like simple example is all about if we are able to teach the machine to tell what is a good quality production or what is a bad quality production, then naturally the machines, when it sees a similar pattern of what is good quality or a bad quality by seeing the pictures or the videos, then it can be deployed in a high speed production system so that the machines have learned from human, and then continuously in a high speed manufacturing we can do this visual inspection. I've just given one example. Apart from it, Industry 4.0 is all about also reimagining and rethinking and reskilling ourselves. How do we better handle the new ways of the working along with these emerging technologies? And that's the reason majority of the actions within the global capability centers is also about how do we reskill, upskill the existing teams to create and demonstrate the new ways of the working, right? So in summary, Industry 4.0 is all about a sensor to the platform integration and demonstrating the differentiation through IoT, iOS, and human machine collaboration, right? So this is the first understanding. Having said that, let me give you an example about how do we how the current process in a normal world and towards the Industry 4.0 ways of working is going to look like, right? In a typical maintenance process, for example, here, if there is any anomaly has been detected or if there is any breakdown has happened to any machines, then naturally the next step is all about the maintenance engineer creating the work orders. It comes into the first notice for the operator, and then depending upon the severity and the importance and based on the pipeline of the various action, the prioritizations gets defined for those work orders by the engineer. And subsequently, the next step of the whole process is all about getting the technicians who could help resolve this problem associated with the work order, along with various checklists of diagnosis, what are the spare parts that is available, against which what is to be made available in terms of repairing the particular breakdown machines. And finally, once the action is completed in terms of doing the repair completion, then naturally that action has been treated as completed, right? If we do it in an Industry 4.0 world, right, the key aspect, and that's that definition which I'd like to highlight, is that what is the new ways of delivering the same process workflow. Here, this process workflow has taken a new dimension of what we call as an intelligent workflow, and that is very important to create the differentiation or reimagining the process. If you see here, even before the machine gets a breakdown, right, the capability of predictive analytics should be made available in terms of understanding when the anomaly is going to happen, or if there is any anomaly is going to happen, or if any problem is going to happen. And this should be made as part of what we call as a cognitive maintenance engine, right? So continuously the data flow that is happening from this machine, and depending upon the various parameters from this machine, the cognitive engine should be able to predict the anomaly and diagnose the problem even before the problem occurs or the breakdown occurs. right? So based on the criticality of the data point or the criticality of the anomaly that is going to happen, automatically a work order is created and the severity definition is being done automatically by the system, right? And it is also scheduled for the respective technician so that he knows what is that potential problem that could come depending upon the machine condition, and subsequently an advisor, technician advisor, is also been recommended to him in terms of what are the steps that has to be taken in terms of resolving the particular problem. And subsequently, apart from the fixing of the issues, there is also materials or the spare parts that is required, and subsequently the replenishment requirement for those spare parts has to also to be taken care. And this is how the whole process flow of a maintenance corrective action process is converted into an intelligent workflow by bringing the AI and the cognitive systems and the automation capability to drive to the new cyber physical process of the same maintenance process, right? So understanding how are we going to work in a newly defined and intelligent workflow for all our current existing process is one of the key areas of the way the GCC could support in helping in reimagining and defining this process, right? Having said that, the second important aspect where the global capability centers can help for the larger enterprise is about helping in organizing the teams to drive this entire program, right? By telling it, I would like to put a main importance about putting up the competency and center of excellence, right? And whenever we call about the center of excellence, there are four important dimensions which we need to take care. The first one is all about the business operations. Whatever the factory has to produce or whatever the assets has to perform or the operator have to do or the productivity point of view, we have to do it well. So from a business operations standpoint. The second important dimension, which is very important, is that putting a multi-year roadmap based on the value stream analysis, what we do from the GCCs, we should be identify what are the challenges, prioritization of the challenges, and how do we address those challenges in terms of the solutions and capabilities using the industry 4.0, which you spoke about, by make use of the IoT or the iOS or the human machine collaboration in terms of building a multi-year roadmap for the factory. And this is where maximum decision points in terms of what is the architecture, how is the equipment landscape, or how the IT landscape is working, and bring the synergy between the operations technologies as well as the information technology, which is what we call as the OT-IT integration as part of the Industry 4.0 agenda, is all being carved out as a multi-year roadmap. And third important dimension here is all about driving the constant innovation and transformation. So whenever we talk about transformation innovation, we are bringing impact to the people, process, and technology so that we are able to drive the cost efficiency or a productivity improvement or the waste elimination or the rework elimination in the factories for a sustainable production process. And this organizing the entire teams across the domain experts, across the technology expert, the solution experts, and the ecosystem partners, where we wanted the young, fresh talent to come in here, or the startup community come in here, can come together in organizing this entire teaming for achieving this smart factory center of excellence. And I just want to highlight some of the key dimensions here, right? We need to able to scale the program with an end goal in mind, and what is the maximum benefit we could reap from the program should be clearly articulated as why we are trying to do this in terms of putting the key drivers and strategic imperatives, putting up a long-term vision and a business case to develop this competitive advantage. And subsequently, what are those specific targeted business process which we are trying to identify, or the manufacturing process we are identified to make the future state of the process, which we spoke here in terms of the intelligent workflows. And most important aspect here is that the executive sponsorship, the program leadership, and the people because all these programs with the newer technology can only be successful when we have that culture of experimenting, adventuring, and innovation using the new capabilities what we bring. And constantly, it is the people that makes the difference to the whole program. So we also need to put a lot of importance about developing the people, the current talent pool what we have, and how do we get assessment done in terms of improving, as I spoke about, the learning capability around upskilling and relearning and cross skilling to be brought in. So the second dimension of organizing the teams for driving this program has a large role for the GCCs, because we are not only supporting this program for one geography. As a global capabilities center, we are going to support across all geographies, whether it is Americas or the Europe or the Asia Pacific, across the board, we are going to support. So how do we organize ourselves, and creating the roadmap of organizing for success plays a very important role to drive this acceleration of the program. And the third important aspect is all about execution and demonstrate the outcomes. We should very clearly articulate the use cases as part of our organization activity, put up a proper program plan with a solid governance associated, so that whatever we have put as an objectives is being realized in the form of outcomes through this entire program execution. And the areas of the solution areas, right? Whether we are trying to use the legacy and doing the modernization of our legacy application to improve the overall equipment efficiency, or we are trying to reduce the operating and the maintenance cost that is required associated with the solution area. In terms of the clear value proposition, we should be able to articulate, so that we are able to also communicate the numbers and the benefit story clearly from a financial outcome perspective also. Like simple example, we are able to reduce our downtime by 25% is a very powerful statement, and that is all has to be clearly demonstrated through the program execution in terms of the value. Other examples, we are able to reduce our energy savings by 10%, and how we are able to demonstrate is where we are going to identify the core processes, what are the desired data point that is required to analyze, predict, so that we take actions to achieve the desired outcomes, right? And other aspect within the industry 4.0 is all about bringing that security dimension and the newer capabilities around the 5G and the software defined network, right? These are the areas of the solutions where we need to start thinking, so that we are delivering the outcome as per the expectations. Some of the examples which I'd like to highlight on the third dimensions of delivering outcome is about how do we do this entire program as a head-on approach. And that's the reason I always like to give an example of the kids installing apps and trying to play through the games in the apps without any user training or any manual or anything, as a more of a self-experiential and personalized, because they know what to do. And similarly, in a factory, we should be able to define a ready applications which should be self-intuitive, it should be more KPI centric, it should be more informative for people, so that they are able to take the actions appropriately, right? And some of the ready applications which we have tried to create here to bring the synergy between the factory world as well as the IT world is applications like plant performance analytics, expert factory app, which actually talks about the overall equipment efficiency, availability, performance in the factory. And there are a lot of people who go to the remote site for material inspection and asset inspection. So what we've also tried to do is that we have tried to eliminate some of the registers or some of the paper transactions by bringing those ready apps of doing the material inspection, so that as and when the pre-dispatch inspection has been completed, immediately the decision point could be taken, and all the records are digitized in the cloud, so that anybody who wants to take this information for various traceability reasons or for the taking some actions can be associated. And the factory works around the shifts. So we have also developed something called the rapid shift handover, so that there's a continuous trail of information flow of what is happening from shift to shift is also some of the ready apps which we have tried to create here, right? And the other important dimension which we are also bringing here is all about cognitive inspection, right? In high-speed manufacturing, it is very, very difficult for the normal human eye to do the visual inspection. So what we are also trying to develop as ready solution or apps is that to train the system in terms of good quality production, bad quality, so that the entire visual inspection process can be automated. And these are also some of the ready apps which you have developed, which could be deployed on the factories. Some of these is being jointly developed both from the domain experts as well as the technology experts, so that we can drive the industry 4.0 agenda as a head-on transformation or a digitization and digital transformation program for the enterprise. Right. I would like to summarize by bringing the dimension of how GCCs can actually help in embracing and driving this program for the larger enterprise. Right. The first important dimension is that driving that proof of concepts and the pilot implementations where we gather the data from the identified set of equipments or assets, so that we are able to understand the value of how these data that is coming from machines is narrating a story of the performance of the factory or the performance of the asset. And this could be done in two forms, right? One is gather the data, and second is visualize the data by identifying the patterns. Do we see any similarities in the data, whether it talks about good quality production associated based on the patterns. And slowly what we can do is that the system to build the models automatically, so that any recommendations that has to be done in terms of the preventive action or the predictive action could be taken subsequently. And the fourth dimension is all about infusing the cognitive, because it's not only the structured information in the factory, even if there is any speech data or the video data or the data in any forms can actually be trained, so that there is a logical action that could be taken from an industry 4.0 context. So my key summary point is all about GCCs can actually accelerate in bringing that broad understanding about the whole industry 4.0 and smart factory capabilities. The second aspect is around organizing the teams across the operations worlds as well as the technology world, so that we build a good use cases to achieve the business outcomes and communicate those outcomes what we are going to achieve. And the third aspect is all about delivering and executing to the outcomes associated. And that's where, because it's a global capability center, we need to build solutions of enterprise grade and global quality and deployable across the various locations. And that's where the talent, the people, the ecosystem, and the vast domain expertise is highly important. And that's how the GCCs can help in accelerating the industry 4.0 and smart factory agenda for the enterprise. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Jaikumar. That was a beautiful presentation. We do have a question for you. But before that, to the audience, just in case you have any other queries that you would like to know or address, you can definitely drop it down on the chat box and we can pick it up for you. This is from Mr. Manish. And the question is, how can GCC be used for enhancing the efficiency of manufacturing and the whole production team as well?
Okay. See, as GCCs currently, there are a lot of processes that get supported over here, right? So from the GCCs, what we did, the team from the Global Capability Center visited factories, different factories. And there are factories which is highly automated. There is a semi-automated factories. Then there are factories which is runs on highly in a manual mode. So GCCs can actually help in doing the assessment in these factories, and then come and do an evaluation in terms of what are the technology capabilities that is required as part of this assessment, prioritization, and building up the business cases in terms of how technology is going to help in achieving the outcomes like productivity improvement, KPI definition. So the solution which I showed around the expert factory, what the factory has to measure, monitor is very clear within the factory. But how do we take the data and what data to be taken, right? the quality of the data and the reality of implementing the solution is building up the roadmap, and execution of these projects is where the GCCs can play a larger role here. And that is what I try to address around organizing the teams for the execution of delivery of manufacturing improvement is where the GCCs can largely support.
With that, we do not see any more questions on the screen. Yes, so I think we're good to wrap up the session. Just one last question from us. Is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap up the session?
Yeah. So there is only one, as I said, that since these are emerging technologies, bringing that common understanding between the GCCs as well as the factory location in terms of the terminology, what we use becomes a very important point. So that one key aspect which I always feel very important from Industry 4.0 agenda is all about everyone talking the same language around the terms what we use from the overall program perspective, right? And the second dimension which I would like to highlight is that many times it needs a lot of discovery based approach, right? Everything is not set on day one to know what has to be done and how has to be done. While some of it 80% may be available, we should be ready to adventure the ambiguity for the remaining 20% which we not know, so that we are able to progress the program agenda, right? So that is the second point which I would like to highlight. And third important point I like to highlight is that all the problems of the world may not be solved only by only one team. We have a good ecosystem support that is required. If somebody is good at solving problems and that knowledge and expertise is available wherever it is available, we should be able to go beyond our enterprise to take that support boldly. And that's where the power of GCCs in terms of multi-entity collaboration, whether it is service providers, whether it's startups, whether it's university or students, we should be able to embrace together to take that support to achieve or accelerate the overall program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jaikumar. We have another question, and that's from Mr. Manikandan, and that is, how can GCC be used for developing intelligent workflows in organizations?
Okay. See, the interesting part where the GCCs are doing is that, like, simple example I would like to highlight here is that suppose you have an ERP system, right? In this case, let me take an SAP system, right? So in SAP, people do the production planning. We also do a production declaration. We also declare how much rework or how much waste that is happening. And we also do periodically physical inventory correction. So there is already a lot of data which is available in the SAP system. And as GCCs, if you are delivering the support of the SAP or an ERP application, nobody has gone and seen this particular data, right? So where GCCs can actually help here is that whatever data within the ERP's landscape is that, take those data and see that this entire data may be narrating a story or a pattern of how my inventory is peaking at a certain time during the month, how the inventory consumption is happening, how much of the rework is happening in those factories, or how the rejection is happening in the factories, right? So GCCs can actually help in taking this data to give some insights. The moment we know our cost of production is increasing beyond the specified limit because of too much of material consumption and too much of material wastage or the line losses, naturally we are going to redefine a process flow to measure the cost at each stage of the production, and we avoid the material loss or the line losses that may happen, and that will become the emergence of definition of the new intelligent workflow. So a normal process, because of we are supporting from GCC's application, the data insights that is going to come is helping the GCCs to generate or create the next best action to reimagine a new intelligent workflow with infusing AI and infusing automation and constantly generating the next action to avoid the losses or the material loss in the factory, as an example. An important role from GCCs are primarily to help and aid and facilitate and accelerate. I've used all these words because the lot of information management within supporting these applications are done from the GCC, and that's where they're going to help in giving those insights to define this new intelligent workflows.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Jaikumar. We do not have any more questions. However, just asking you, is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap up the session?
No, thank you very much for all the participation here, and it was a pleasure connecting with all of you here.
Thank you so much. Once again, we hope we have you back again for another beautiful slot as well. Until then, good day to you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this slot was presented by Mr. Jaikumar Subramanian, where the topic we discussed was role of Global Capability Centers, that's GCC, in accelerating Industry 4.0 and Smart Factory Agenda. With this, we have come to an end of this session. We have